Every episode of the Powerpuff Girls reboot from 2016 peaks with its first 20 seconds. The visuals were produced by commercial studio Golden Wolf, who you may recognize from their stylish Disney XD bumpers. The detailed character animation, the DIY newspaper collage look, the energetic pop-punk theme song, it all gets you excited for what looks to be a modernized spin on the classic animated hit from 1998. Then, the episode starts.
OMG! Yes! Remember 2 weeks ago when I made that Mojo meme generator? No me gusta!
If you were a cartoon YouTuber 10 years ago, you watched the first dozen episodes and made a video about how this show was the worst thing to happen to the United States of America in 2016, involving a pop culture icon from the late 20th century, myself included. Who could have known there would end up being 3 seasons, 119 episodes, crossovers, comics, and a huge merchandising push for Cartoon Network's first reboot of one of their own properties. Some of the biggest animated series not on their channel during the 2010s were Nickelodeon's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and, more notably, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. If you're looking to compete and bring back an action show from the 80s or 90s that can appeal to girls while having a proven track record in consumer products, you go with Powerpuff Girls.
Monster Fighters, Mojo Jojo's Lair, and Beauty Parlor playsets with posable action dolls and accessories, each sold separately.
It had ended somewhat recently in 2005, with creator Craig McCracken saying no to the prospect of a 7th season.
We would hate to continue making a show when we're just kind of hitting the same notes and repeating ourselves. And we want to kind of go out while it still was good.
During that decade, we still got new comics, an anniversary episode, and appearances in crossover content. Then came Dance Pantsed in 2014, a standalone 2D and 3D hybrid special featuring the entire old cast and a handful of artists from the original. It's a little too fast and everyone isn't entirely in character, but I've really warmed up to how it looks. My biggest complaint is that Ringo Starr became a Powerpuff Girl, but didn't fight crime with his signature move.
I'm warning you with peace and love.
I hope you enjoyed that tasty 144p quality clip. 6 months later, Cartoon Network confirmed that the Powerpuff Girls were coming back, and in June 2015, we get our first look. Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup now had new hair and new voices.
Hi, I'm Amanda Layton, and I play the character Blossom. I'm Natalie Palamides, and I play Buttercup.
My name is Kristen Lee, and I play Bubbles on the new Powerpuff Girls coming to Cartoon Network in 2016.
Recasting is standard for many a reboot, and these 3 do a fine job. Yet, every other main cast member returned. I think the intent was to make all the kids sound different due to a change in how those characters were approached, since Princess Morblux was also replaced. It's just a strange move when her old voice actor, Jennifer Hale, stuck around to play Ms. Keen. Executive producers and industry veterans Bob Boyle and Nick Jennings were new to this franchise. Though between the creator of Wow Wow Wubbzy and the art director who invented the Sky Flowers in SpongeBob, you got a proven and promising team of showrunners. Classic Powerpuff Girls undoubtedly holds up, far more than something like Transformers or DuckTales that also returned during this decade. However, it's a loud and cynical product of its time. There's potential for a quality modernization. Like, I know this is far and away the most hated cartoon reboot of its time, but when there's over 100 episodes I have no clue about, surely it had to improve, right?
Finding Sport here will be next to impossible unless there's a trail of slime. A trail of slime!
I forgot to mention that Bob Boyle worked with Butch Hartman for 4 years. Could you tell? The episode listings on Hulu are vastly different from the production order, and that matters early on. You'll see villains, powers, and locations appear before they're supposed to be introduced. Just a handy tip to keep in mind when you have your next Powerpuff Girls 2016 watch-through. Once the intro comes to a close, you'll see one update that works really nicely. The title cards contain a unique graphic for each episode, and the first color corresponds to the protagonist, with each shape reflecting their personalities. They also appear in the light streaks that trail behind the heroes. Pink squares for Blossom, round blue circles for Bubbles, and sharp green triangles for Buttercup. Pretty simple but effective, even if some graphics and titles were far better than others. A Star is Blossom absolutely pales in comparison to a pun as incredible as Forced Kin. Not the only penis-related title either. The opening seconds of what aired as episode 1, Escape from Monster Island, surprised me.
Sensitive Thugs is the best band of all time. All time.
Oh, they're girls now. Not to say the trio weren't defined by their gender before, either playing into or against norms, but their interests weren't. They weren't fawning over boy bands or competing in beauty pageants. They were reading comics or coloring, general little kid activities. Perhaps that was a product of a mostly male staff, but I think you lose some of the appeal by pushing this as a girls' cartoon, one exclusive to the pink toy aisle. Same goes for shifting the school setting from Pokeoke's kindergarten to Midway Elementary. I only know the name because this is one of a few notable spelling errors.
Okay.
The younger and cuter these superheroes are, the funnier it is when they fight crime. I don't think they were aged up since Princess Morbuck celebrates her super sweet 6, but as a key location, this new school is far less memorable. Ms. Keene is still here to keep things moving from time to time. Besides her one spotlight episode, this was the only note I ever made about her. The doors are now open for plots about student elections, plays, dances, but those are topics any cartoon about kids in school could cover. This feels more like a middle or high school, with cliques, girls with acne, and children who tower over the Powerpuffs. We get an in-universe reason for why Pokeoke shut down, complete with a flashback designed after the original series. I hate how much more appealing the line art and incidentals are here.
Oh, yeah. Huh? Here's that time I beat Abracadabra. Man, I looked so different back then.
Okay, I don't completely despise how this cartoon looks, but it's pretty misguided visually. The goal was to round off some of the edges and add more volume in subtle ways that would be masked because the iconic looks of the main trio were kept intact. But for me, it has the opposite effect. The girls stand out next to background and side characters with far more shapes in their construction and detail in their clothes that are just as soft as they are. They're no longer the roundest parts of a sharp and pointy world. I know Cartoon Network had a house style in the 90s and 2010s that impacted both iterations, but this one never developed its own design sensibility. Even in seasons 2 and 3, there's one-off dudes who look like main characters of their own shows that would have been dumped and written off for taxes on HBO Max. Either that or Waluigi.
Just have to be on the lookout for anyone suspicious.
The one visual trademark it does have are diverse off-model expressions. It's something the original show did super sparingly, to contrast with the rougher Rogues Gallery.
Really?
Now, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup's faces are blank canvases for simplifications that take after storyboard drawings, emoji eyes, and this choppy 2-frame lip animation I really dig.
How do I make them drink the antidote? How do I make them drink it up?
What I don't dig is how detailed and grotesque the expressions can get, really leaning into that spunko gross-out energy that is otherwise not reflected in the rest of the humor. There's a casualness to these drawings that is hampered by how the girls frequently look not quite right, especially in season 1. Let's all have thick line art and not tell Bubbles. Characters will be drawn at a weird angle or with eyes that are too big, so making them look wrong on purpose doesn't have the intended impact. Oh yeah, I'm sure drawing the mayor with a visible mouth and big blinking eye for only one episode was a stylistic choice and not an animation error that was probably too expensive to fix.
Someone has stolen all the water in Townsville.
It's a shame because there's a lot of artwork that's great in isolation. This slick early concept, crew promos, comic covers, and these cleaned up reference poses for season 2 by Dean Hezin. Plus, the background art is super appealing, filled with strong palettes and dramatic lighting that do a lot to build atmosphere. Yu Song Lee's art direction did just enough to tweak the colors and details of Townsville without making it look unfamiliar. It makes up for how reliant the series was on stock images and footage. I love mixed media as much as the next guy, but what was the inspiration here? Did they look at Breadwinners and say, that, we need that? A lot of whip pans or reaction backgrounds feature abstract patterns you'd see on the floor of an arcade or bowling alley, including a Pac-Man symbol. Reminds me of the jazz cups, especially the trademark curved clouds. I noticed that the reboot tried to forge its own identity by commenting on 80s or 90s media. This might be the only aspect to be carried over from Dance Pantsed.
I'd kick your fashionista butts if I wasn't so tired.
Not in those mid-90s throwbacks you're wearing.
The roller skating debutantes have a rocket powery extreme sports vibe, and the girls' favorite show is a Knight Rider parody called Space Tow Truck. Season 1 has 4 separate jokes about the cast rapping, which come across as cringy and tryhard instead of poking fun at how cringy and tryhard cartoon characters rapping was back in the day.
Well, my name is Blossom and I'm here to say...
It looks down on media like Street Sharks, made just to make a quick buck off merchandise. It was so obvious whenever they would introduce vehicles just to have new toys to sell. Sure is great how shows like that don't exist anymore. I assume these bits were supposed to be self-aware, they just don't work when placed in context. Take this one, making fun of token female characters.
I'm Tanya Corn, and I'm the girl one.
This episode is about how much the female protagonist loves unicorns. Just like the original, there's a wealth of pop culture references. But what irritated me was how generic and basic they felt. In Cheap Thrills, Bubbles has a sketchy fantasy about what might happen to the wild animal she's hoarding, filled with nods to the most iconic moments and lines from West Side Story, The Godfather, Mission Impossible, and The Fugitive. I guess it's in line with the kid mimicking movies they've seen, but there's a ton of homages on this same level. Here's a reference to Indiana Jones.
Why did it have to be a spider?
Here's a reference to Street Fighter. Here's the same reference to Indiana Jones repeated again.
Ugh, why did it have to be spiders?
It's all the most recognizable bits from the most popular properties. Not to say classic Powerpuff was immune to an easy pull, but referencing Star Wars pre-Phantom Menace in 1998 versus post-Force Awakens in 2016 is like flirting versus harassment. Having an episode about 70s disco fever suddenly turn into a parody of the Trunch Run is simply way more creative than having Blossom imagine that if she was an astronaut, Buttercup would become R2-B2.
Boop, beep, beep, boop, beep, boop.
Despite being anti-Yoko Ono propaganda, one of my favorite episodes of anything ever is the incredibly self-indulgent parody of the history, breakup, and culture surrounding the Beatles. Meet the Beat-Alls may be a big fan of the source material. I also hate that I can't hear some of the greatest songs of all time without thinking about how Mojo Jojo and him are the equivalent to Lennon and McCartney.
I want to hold your cash.
For every easy name drop, there's something more nuanced, like how the score is filled with sound-alikes that fit the era of the band being emulated through the rise and fall of this villain team.
Moko's idea is that stealing items that are all white isn't against the law, so it's okay to take them. It's all right because they're all white.
I don't think this is referencing a specific quote. Why did he say that? With something like early Simpsons, I loved learning about pop culture through jokes I didn't understand as a kid. I know that was an inspiration for the creative team because of the joke they reused.
You want a realistic, down-to-earth show that's completely off the wall and swarming with magic robots.
That's right. Raise your hand if you want a crime-fighting plan that's more wacky or zany. Great. Now raise your hand if you want a crime-fighting plan that's more down-to-earth and real. Interesting.
Later on, you'll get references to Tintin or the Warriors that are a little more inspired, but I wish I got more riffs on subjects that I didn't recognize immediately, like the intro to Saturday Night Live Sprockets instead of the Mayor of Munchkinville. The Powerpuff Girls sure was missing a spoof of that specific pop culture icon.
Our heroes! Whoa!
Remember 2 weeks ago when I made that Mojo meme generator?
There's another kind of reference we need to discuss too. There isn't a lot of topical humor here. It just stands out when there's 2 separate fake grumpy cats. Frowny Cat and Crotchety Cat. The original intentionally felt stuck in the past. The streets are filled with 50s businessmen, the professor smokes a pipe, and everyone relies on landlines and rotary phones. The joke behind the Powerpuff hotline was that a preschooler's version of the bat phone would be a Fisher-Price toy. Now that's been replaced with smartphones for each of the girls so they can watch cat videos. That's what kids were using the internet for instead of watching their favorite Let's Players say slurs.
I'm better than you.
Oh no! Internet trolls!
If you're going to appeal to the present day, reflect the present day, not something that was already extremely dated when it aired. Insert No Me Gusta clip here. Fortnite is about to drop and speed up the decline of the video game industry. Why are we referencing arcade cabinet lingo?
Combo, double combo, triple combo, triple team combo.
Once again, these topical bits feel a lot more natural over time. One of the best told stories revolves around a 3D printer, Princess writes a slanderous song about the girls that is fortunately not called a diss track, and you already know Ms. Keen is on the apps. It was a happy coincidence that a plot about tabloids came off as a satire of fake news by the time it aired. Unfortunately, these are overshadowed by what came before, which is par for the course for this show. There's a joke in season 3 where Bubbles is looking for advice and approaches
Mrs. Rhonda, my favorite marine biologist.
I think this line is supposed to be absurd, but I'm not sure because of episodes like Viral Spiral. There, we learn Bubbles is into coding, and even made her own video game. A very transparent way to tie in Cartoon Network's partnership with the kid-friendly coding program Scratch. It would be easier to buy if Bubbles wasn't the butt of the joke so often.
Hey, Bubbles, did you turn off the water in the...
That marine biologist line was probably written as a non sequitur, but I wouldn't blame you for interpreting it as a corporate attempt at female empowerment in the 2010s, especially since the reboot was the face of multiple campaigns in that vein, like Pow Factor and in Powerpuff. Viral Spiral comes off as being very Game Shakers to me. Instead, this show featured a different Notorious Jared, who I'll discuss later.
I'm Roll Jared, and I am wet.
One early controversy came from attempting to tackle a topical social issue. Bubbles befriends Donny, this pony who sounds like Dubro Brack. I don't hate the guy, but he's hard to like when his central character trait is dumb.
Destiny. She calls out the name Danny.
Her name is Donny.
Donny undergoes a surgery from the professor to become a unicorn that alters his body, turning him into a monster. However, it turns out Donny was always a unicorn. A pony can only be a unicorn if you were naturally born as a unicorn. A pony forcing themselves to become a unicorn is a monster. The moral: never try to transition. There are only 2 genders, Powerpuff Girl or Rowdy Rough Boy. Freelance writer Emily Brundige apologized for the episode.
When I wrote the premise, I didn't intend for it to be a parallel to the transgender person's plight, only a story about a horse who wanted to be a unicorn. I feel pained that I in any way hurt a group of people I care about.
However, one of the showrunners claimed that this was their exploration of gender fluidity and rejecting established gender norms. Whether or not he's a pony or unicorn doesn't change who Donny is on the inside, and I think that was supposed to be the takeaway. It's just that this revelation comes from how Donny looks on the outside. Unsurprisingly, the gender commentary in his character was completely dropped after his debut. Otherwise, Horn Sweet Horn is another dull season 1 outing. I like when Blossom moves to stand next to Buttercup for absolutely no reason.
It's a cult.
A cult? What's a cult?
A baby horse.
Another unpopular outing was Bye Bye Bellum, which wrote the mayor's highly capable assistant off the show. Nick Jennings vaguely explained that
we felt like Ms. Bellum wasn't quite indicative of the kind of messaging we wanted to be giving out at this time.
I'm already beginning to forget her face.
Sure, she was stuck assisting an incompetent man in power and seen as eye candy on the surface, but Ms. Bellum was one half of a comedic duo with her boss, and had a mind so great that you were never allowed to see it.
Girls, have I ever told you the story of this old theater?
Just say yes.
No!
It would have been so easy to tweak her role and design, as was the case with Ms. Keen and her successful breast reduction surgery. Instead, the cast loses a key female supporting character, and Mayor becomes far more one-note. There's so few women that a bachelorette party in season 2 is filled with incidentals and one-offs. At the end of the episode, he proves he can run Townsville on his own by rescuing the girls. The trio needs a man's help to beat the bad guys. Bye Bye Bellum is truly a feminist masterpiece. The trio needs saving far too often. In a case like this, it's servicing the arc of the episode's protagonist. But the trio sure do feel useless when they're made into damsels in distress over a dozen times across the first 80 episodes. No wonder the narrator no longer credits the Powerpuff Girls with saving the day.
So once again, the day is saved, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls.
Whenever an episode ends with the hearts and stars, it'll always be a subversion, likely confusing kids who had no exposure to the original.
And so once again, the day is saved, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls and the Action Mayor.
At first, the narrator occasionally interjects to set up the story or read on-screen text, but he's no longer the fixture he once was. disappearing about halfway through season 1.
Ah, lunchtime at the school cafeteria.
This is part of a bad habit within this reboot of referencing its predecessor without having a proper reintroduction for their new audience. The Gangrene Gang and Fuzzy Lumpkins appear with no fanfare. Mojo's lair being on top of a volcano is a crucial plot point before we get an establishing shot of the exterior. The sugar, spice, and everything nice portion of the classic intro is parodied, even though you'll only see it in the extended intro that isn't attached to any episode. It adds to the reboot's ever-growing identity crisis. Only the coolest children, Boomerang viewers circa 2016, were equipped to understand these references.
And so, once again, the professor is single.
When I watched the original Powerpuff Girls, I loved the show, but always wished they stood around more, rarely fought anyone until the third act, and delivered the bare minimum for action sequences. Why have fast and impactful attacks when all you really need are a few slow punches and kicks? Even better, they don't connect with their opponent.
Come on, Bubs! You gotta decide!
Taking the Danny Phantom route of going heavy on the moving stills doesn't live up to the bombastic battles of the classic series. It's a good thing there's no imitatable violence with sequences like this that just drag and resize the characters across the screen. De-emphasizing giant monster battles and stopping bank robberies illustrates a shift in priorities for the reboot. Storyboard artist Julia Vickerman said,
"Most of the episodes don't focus as much on a gimmicky bad guy. It's a little bit more about the girls and what they're learning about themselves, like life lessons type stuff."
The Powerpuff Girls is now about little girls who happen to be superheroes instead of superheroes who happen to be little girls. The number of surreal dream sequences and fantasies reminded me of a slice-of-life cartoon, and that doesn't feel right. Bubbles imagines what it would be like to escape explosions and catch villains instead of actually doing that. Towards the end of the run, we get Checkin' Out, a very Big City Green style outing where all of the girls each have individual journeys in their heads while at the supermarket. They're completing a shopping list to make food for aliens, but clearly that's not important. I sure do love when they hint towards an adventure that sounds far more exciting than what I'm currently watching.
I didn't do it! Then who did, Bubbles? Disappearing ninja plate smashers? Cause we locked them up last week.
Who needs action anyway? I much prefer hearing the girls apologize to each other over and over again. It's like how people who hate Steven Universe describe Steven Universe.
Sorry we were being such buttzillas. Sorry I got so carried away hanging out with the Derbytons.
We're sorry. We're so sorry. We're really sorry, Professor. I'm sorry I got so jealous of Chelsea. Sorry for putting your toy behind the door.
Well, I'm kinda sorry for being a little messy.
We're sorry.
Stop apologizing!
The reboot seeks to be more character-driven than the original, and I see where that goal is coming from. You get focus episodes for each girl, but they were largely written as a unit, which was very compatible with the old Monster of the Week formula.
We realized that the girls kind of form one complete person. Like separately, they're not as strong as they are together, and they're basically body, mind, and spirit.
Now the storytelling has shifted to being relationship-based. How does one girl relate to the other two, or a pair work together? To accommodate for this fresh approach, the Powerpuffs have been given stronger personalities, or as I call them, louder personalities.
OMG! Yes!
In Power Up Puff, the girls get marketable and personalized Green Lantern powers, officially referred to as Aura. Buttercup loves violence, Blossom loves organizing, and Bubbles loves cute things. Rinse and repeat. Buttercup loves violence.
I just want to punch stuff.
Blossom loves organizing.
My sisters need me. But not before I clean this up.
Now you would think Bubbles loves cute things, but actually she has a dark side whenever she gets mad. She has a dark side whenever she gets mad. She has a dark side whenever she gets mad. They're tired of this joke. Bubbles is the most naive, so she's the stupid one now.
The pillows escaped. It's loose in the house.
The house? But that's where I live!
Unlike Blossom and Buttercup, there's no Simpson sibling for Bubbles to take heavy inspiration from in this reboot. She's the least annoying, like I groaned when Buttercup busted out her heavy metal detector, or Blossom was too clean to handle fighting in the Townsville dump, but Bubbles is also the least defined. There's lots of Buttercup and Bubbles pairings, or Buttercup and Blossom pairings, but only one Blossom and Bubbles pairing, where the leader is the one moving things along.
Stay focused, Bubbles!
I think it's cool to see new rivalries come out of character pairings, yet the execution is very surface level. I'd be lying if I said I didn't get any enjoyment out of these new characterizations for the girls.
Blossom, what's my score?
You're a terrible person!
It's just that when you're not getting beaten over the head with each of their sole character traits, the bond that's trying to be conveyed between these sisters feels so forced.
Bubbles is a Stinkenstein, you say?
I had one bad day, and now I'll never live it down.
Theoretically, these simple arcs the three protagonists undergo from episode to episode should be a source of depth, but those have their own problems, like plots resolving themselves. In Princess Buttercup, Buttercup laments not sharing the same interests as her sisters, but that no longer matters once she ignores Blossom and Bubbles, at which point this becomes the conflict that needs resolving.
I guess I forgot who my real friends are.
It's also remarkably similar to Butter Crush from the original series. About 1/4 of Season 1 takes heavy inspiration from classic episodes. Besides removing a questionably aged stereotype, there's nothing the reboot stories improve on to make these stories their own. So much for ushering in a deeper look into the characters' lives. The good news is the original plots are ones worth telling, like who is Bubbles going to take to the concert when she only has one other ticket? We gotta clean the house before the professor comes home. Donny's new friend makes Bubbles jealous. What if a fairy tale princess came to Townsville who doesn't need a man? #feminism, and she's the one who saves the girls after they sing a rap to her. Wow. All of my least favorite parts of the reboot wrapped up in one terrible episode. The worst of Season 1. What do you mean, Emmy nominated?
See? We already have one nerd in this family.
Thank you.
Sometimes a premise is intriguing, but it contradicts what we know about the characters. Buttercup versus Math shows that Buttercup is better at math than Blossom, even though it's never explained or justified how this is something Buttercup is naturally skilled at. In Road Trippin', Bubbles questions if Professor Utonium has been purposely ignoring her, showing a disconnect between a lover of art versus science, but he's gone out of his way to help and comfort his daughter before. When Princess Moorbucks goes broke and poor bucks, she seeks help from Blossom. The pair bond over business and discover a softer side of the villain, but they're sworn rivals, and I can't see why either party would agree to collaborate. How am I supposed to buy that this reboot's characters are stronger when they're stretched so far just to make a storyline work? It would help if we weren't dealing exclusively with the Powerpuffs and the Professor most of the time. Too often, they're at home learning to obey their father's advice, even though he can't tell his kids apart.
So, how are things, Buttercup? Oh my goodness, you're helping hand out cookies!
This reboot really plays up Professor Utonium's dorkiness and love of science. But again, he's only a sagely and proactive father when the plot demands it. Otherwise, he's such a clumsy idiot with a bumbling tuba theme that he overshadows the mayor. Definitely the biggest character downgrade here.
Professor! Can you help us with the internet?
Sorry girls, I guess I just don't understand computers.
It's not like there's many villains for the mayor to alert the girls about anyway. In Season 1, Mojo Jojo only pulls up halfway through an episode to bring in an action climax. He isn't as mad, talks in the third person, and his repetitive speech pattern is gone. Now, he's Midjo Jojo.
Tis me, no introduction necessary.
Moorbucks gets the most screen time, thanks to being around the upgraded school setting. But it's too bad she barely ever suits up for a fight, sticking to harassing the girls with her rich entourage.
Moorbucks, you believe in Santa too? Yeah, I'm not a monster.
I know him was known for his manipulative plots where he would pull the strings from afar. While I don't mind how often he disguises himself to trick the trio, I miss when he could also be one of the guys. Just another member of the Rogues Gallery. I thought the voice modulation not sounding quite the same was bad, but Pronoun Man is barely in his own episodes. He wasn't even in his own movie.
What a delightful evening at the theater.
Fuzzy Lumpkins gets 0 episodes and barely any lines. The Gangrene Gang had more presence in Gorillaz than the franchise they spawned from, and the Amoeba Boys were retired after 1 appearance, likely due to this being the last role for voice actor Chuck McCann before his passing. Yes, it was the internet one.
Ow! Hey!
As for new foes, the overly masculine Manboy is expertly played by legend Maurice LaMarche. He and his amusing pun-filled minions are hard to hate, even if the social commentary behind Manboy boils down to
men.
I'm surprised Mojo is the one with the podcast and not him. The fashionistas Bianca and Barbaros bring in some inspired digs at fashion culture, though personally, most of their appeal comes from half of the duo being a big monkey. The best addition is the mysterious tech-based trickster Silico. Bro literally thinks he's him, falling into the same trap of spending too much time hiding in the shadows. I love the vibe around his design and his deceptive schemes that make him a true threat, although his backstory doesn't make any sense. This adult man's childhood was somehow ruined by 5-year-olds. Do not worry, I will talk about the twerking panda later. Please contain your excitement. While watching Powerpuff Girls 2016 fail to deliver unique pop culture references, topical humor, and real-world commentary, my mind kept going to another Cartoon Network superhero action comedy from the same era. OKKO, Let's Be Heroes. A show I love to recommend even though you can no longer watch it legally. There's a lot of Meet the Beatles style tribute episodes filled with in-jokes and Easter eggs that all feel specific to their creative team. The Cartoon Network crossover nexus is filled with cameos, but it takes place in the CN City from the mid-2000s channel bumpers.
Hey, what's this spooky dump?
The specificity carries over into how the individual styles of board artists are maintained without looking too amateurish. When we learn that Dendy is into coding, which is also a product of the Scratch partnership, it's a natural fit. She was already a hacker and inventor. The character isn't forced into being something she's not.
I learned coding from scratch. It is how I express myself.
Everybody likes Rad, ? Seems like it's going to be about Rad's fame going to his head when he has a hit viral video, much like the Reboot's own 50 Minutes of Fame. But no, when Rad does get famous, he's disappointed that all anyone seems to care about is how he's an alien, and his only representation is through stereotypes.
You've gotta be kidding me!
Rad having a softer, more thoughtful side is nothing new for him, but we're seeing it expressed in a fresh way. That makes his personality far stronger than just hitting the same beats on repeat. There's no action, but the conflict is engaging enough that I didn't notice. The real-world parallel is clear and remains relevant, even though this was a parody of Vine that dropped months after it shut down.
Red Rocket's on the roof and ready to roll.
The series even has a running gag to prevent apologies from getting too sappy, by having every character say the Canadian pronunciation of sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Surprisingly, OKKO never acknowledged the PPG reboot, aside from casting the new voices for Buttercup and Bubbles as replacements for two of the Ghoul School girls, Tanis and Winnie. These characters first appeared in an obscure 80s Scooby-Doo movie, so giving them familiar voices was fitting.
I'm the werewolf? She's the mummy. Duh.
Yeah!
Thank heavens, the Powerpuff Girls!
My favorite episode from Season 1 is also a crossover you can't currently watch legally. TTG v PPG. The cynical part of me suspects this was a corporate mandate, though that's partially because the full title featured in TV listings was the Teen Titans Go and Powerpuff Girls Completely Organic Crossover Special. That being said, it succeeds because it doesn't just pull from the Powerpuff Girls. It also pulls from the Powerpuff Girls. Mojo's Mo Linguish returns, the narrator has a meaty running gag where only Robin can hear him, and the reboot designs have never looked better. Classic character designer Chris Battle was charged with keeping everyone on model, and there's a slick, angular energy to them that's very appealing, even if this kinda moves like the Flash animated PPG Rules episode. Mojo teleports himself to Jump City and raises a monkey army alongside Beast Boy and Cyborg, taking advantage of a world where heroes don't care about battling villains. The girls team up with the rest of the Titans, and even though this is a simple 11-minute adventure, everyone has something to do. Blossom's organization obsession doesn't define her, Buttercup gets to have some fast-paced fighting, and Bubbles gets to be useful. Even though this crossover wasn't really earned, airing 2 months after the reboot debuted, it did a solid job finding similarities between the two superhero parodies that felt at least somewhat organic. I know the original already had an episode called Say Uncle, but I think the lack of an Uncle Grandpa collab is disappointing. You know things are rough when the most positive part of this YouTube cartoon review is about Teen Titans Go.
And so once again, the day is saved. No thanks to the Teen Titans.
The Powerpuff Girls also had a major presence in the ill-fated Toys to Life game LEGO Dimensions, with 2 minifigure packs and a fully explorable Townsville Adventure World. There's a surprising amount of callbacks to locations and gags from Season 1. While they're bringing back elements I didn't care for, it's fascinating to see them expanded on, especially with the trademark silliness and wit that comes from these LEGO license games.
I remember voting for him based on his timeless campaign slogan. Vote for mayor for mayor.
This is another crossover that embraces the predecessor. Just look at how long Mojo's text boxes are. There's even a few nods to this being a reboot and its fan response.
Hurry up, I've got childhood ruining videos on the internet to downvote.
I do wish the background characters weren't all generic minifigures, and that the actual LEGO tie-in sets took inspiration from this game instead of being too play-focused and not including any iconic locations. At least we got the quietest, least annoying version of Donny. There's a lot to be charmed by here, just not enough for me to plop down the hundreds it would take to actually experience it for myself. Sometimes it captured the source material a little too well.
Now, how to best meme up this article. We need something snappy enough to outdo Mojo Ken has world domination.
12 issues of tie-in comic books were published by IDW from 2016 to 2018. They share these same staff writers as the series, so the stories are nothing special, except for one where Princess buys the rights to the Powerpuff Girls' name, forcing the trio to take on the moniker of Nobody. Really silly and clever wordplay here. Again, the way these build cohesion with the original series is the highlight. Derek Charm's art in the first 4 issues brings in a flatter, more Hanna-Barbera-ish look that's a lot more energetic than the animation it's mimicking. Phil Murphy, who you may recognize from his work on the Adventure Time comics, is clearly a huge fan. Tons of old one-off villains and group shots, simple props turned into Easter eggs, and a steady stream of cameos from Samurai Jack and Dexter's Labs, just as Friends characters. I wouldn't say touches like these make any of the comics worth checking out. Some are based on ideas that weren't good enough to become episodes, if that tells you where the bar is. It's just nice to see a bone thrown to older fans in the wake of so many polarizing decisions. Almost makes you forget there was an official Funko Pop variant cover. Clearly, both the LEGO and IDW teams were onto something, as halfway through Season 2, the reboot starts to feel a little bit more like Powerpuff Girls. Giant monster fights and one-time pun-based baddies become a staple. Even though it's weird, we're still seeing the majority of villains only once a season.
I had to fight Dr. Tankenstein all by myself. Ow! Ow! Ow!
The team also realized that Mojo Jojo was the best character.
Mojo will go down at his own pace.
He's finally doing what he should have already been doing, getting beat up for no reason and conducting convoluted evil plans that take center stage. There's an extremely weird one where he kidnaps the Powerpuff snuggle animals, all originating from the intro. He's able to talk to these plushes and see their memories, which includes more Bubble slander.
Is there nothing about her that isn't a weakness?
As bizarre as this one is, I would rather be reminded of the Simpsons episode with Moe's talking bar rag instead of something from the classic series. Going forward, you'll see similar premises paired with very different executions that are less derivative. Outings like a slight hiccup show a slight improvement. The girls have superpowered hiccups that make it difficult to face the gnat in the fragile Jar District. The Amoeba Boys were split into a mobster-themed foe and a purely pathetic foe, and the latter is my favorite new villain to be introduced.
I should have got rental insurance!
Nothing revolutionary is on display, but it's nicely plotted, not too generic, and sometimes very funny. For me, that's good enough to be the best part of Season 2.
Hello? What?
Oh, sorry.
You'll still get endings that satisfy a conflict the rest of the story wasn't built around, or 3 minutes of the cast standing around delivering exposition, but I'll applaud Season 2 for taking some risks that netted okay results. Bubbles the Blue feels very personal, sharing a message about how it's okay to be sad sometimes and be there to grieve with your siblings. The trouble with Bubbles is set up like it'll cover a tired trope, but contains a twist I genuinely didn't see coming. Home Sweet Homesick really spells out the message about making room for having fun, more than usual for even this show, but it's conveyed through a rather lovely parody of David Bowie's Space Oddity. Super refreshing to have things finally slow down and calm down for a little while. This and some of the bad raps are the only songs from the reboot that stick out to me, which is a shame since we get quite a few going from seasons 2 to 3. The brief credits theme is kind of catchy. I like the longer remix used for multi-part episodes too. Was it worth stomaching another 90-second ad break on Hulu just to listen to it? It would be kind of funny if I said yes. I love watching the same Virgin Airlines ad over 100 times. I think the lack of memorable songs stems from so many being commercial jingles or soundalikes that play in the background or only for a brief moment. Composer Mike Reagan was clearly good at doing these, but once again, most of them are very basic references. You get Footloose, Saturday Night Fever, Thriller, and Singin' in the Rain, among others, during a dance montage. Reagan also did the background music for the LEGO Dimensions tie-in, which I've been using throughout this review alongside tracks from now dead mobile games that are surprisingly banging. The score trades that signature electronic drum and bass for something softer and poppier. It sounds like the countdown music that played before this video premiered.
In the meantime, why don't you hold on to my trophy? I like to call him Kicknelius.
Sometimes lines from the intro will be included, though they can be annoying when they're spammed.
What do you say, girls? Sisters?
No one ever backed down from a fight. Sisters.
Hand piles are my favorite thing ever. Sisters.
Speaking of spamming sounds... Wow, they didn't even use Sound Idea's #1 Hanna-Barbera sound effect. Very disappointing.
Number 1, Fred Flintstone scrambling. We've saved the best for last. All cartoon hell breaks loose when Fred is rushing around in a panic.
By season 2, all 3 girls have their own friend for stories. Marilyn, the debutante for Buttercup, Donny for Bubbles, and Blossom gets Jared Shapiro. In his first 5 appearances, all we know about him is that he's Blossom's crush, despite barely speaking to her, plays the oboe, and his catchphrase is
Yummers.
A Star is Blossom is not a notable appearance for him, but it does contain this fantasy.
There's no one I'd rather share the stage with than you, my sweet Blossom.
After this episode aired, the internet discovered that Jared bears a resemblance to his voice actor, Jake Goldman, who was also the story editor and had writing credits on over 85 episodes. Clearly, this was a creepy self-insert being crushed on by an underage girl. Yes, people actually thought this. If that was true, they probably wouldn't have included an age gap joke later in the episode.
We are gathered here today to marry this 3,000-year-old warrior to this small boy.
Storyboard artist Grace Kraft discussed this on Twitter.
That wasn't the intention when the character was first created. The artist thought it would be funny to model a nerdy love interest after him, and then because of that figured it was fitting for him to VA. PPG crew loves sticking in crew members as cameos in general, some smaller roles and some bigger roles.
This actually checks out if you've seen the reboot. There are actual self-insert characters in other episodes. The reporters Bob and Nick are named after the showrunners.
That was supposed to be my joke, Bob.
Don't do this on air, Nick.
Oh, you're gonna get it.
Assuming that Goldman had a crush on Blossom would also mean assuming the showrunners hated each other in real life. Both Jared and Blossom were played by adults, so what was the issue here? Plus, another key writer, Haley Mancini, was the new voice of Princess. This wasn't out of the ordinary. The situation got so out of hand that a Cartoon Network spokesperson went out of their way to confirm who created Jared. I still see this rumor be accepted as truth, and the people behind it continue to be harassed. I hate to break it to you, but not every piece of media is shaped by the writer's barely disguised fetish. I desperately wish Jared was remotely as interesting as the drama surrounding him. He fulfills the same role as Barry, just another kid around the school to talk to. Here's a Family Guy cutaway gag he stars in.
I'm sure Barry's got it worse than us.
Remember Berry Cakes? No survivors. Mom! Ugh, Barry.
If you're going to hate on the reboot, hate on it for its actual flaws, instead of one you have to jump through so many hoops to justify, like the new Powerpuff Girl, introduced in the 5-part Power of 4 special.
Blistina?
Blistina?
I respect the ambitious format shift, even if it feels like this was meant to air across a week instead of all in one day, but this is the boiling point for many of the reboot's long-term issues. Bliss turns out to be a long-lost sibling created by Professor Utonium with Chemical W.
I also had some difficulty with chemicals A through V.
It's only now that this reboot introduces crucial parts of the girl's lore, like Mojo being the professor's pet. They rehash the basics of Twisted Sister with a little Bubble Vicious in there, for variety. We have another big purple team member with unstable emotions who puts others in danger. Why was this the personality handed to the first black Powerpuff Girl? This is how she's introduced. Utonium is more stern and serious than he's ever been, yet he still snaps back to being silly in an instant.
Nothing will distract me. Ooh, my Ham of the Month Club delivery.
Bliss is designed like a background character on this series, with hair that's too complex, lanky limbs, and distracting details, like turning the long socks into leggings. Part 1 is about the girls thinking that Bliss is Bubble's imaginary friend, and it's frustrating upon rewatch once you know that she's real. Part 2 is nothing but exposition delivered in one room, and a climax that sorts itself out. Part 3 repeats the same story beat of the trio fighting over how Bliss should be a superhero before their new sis has to save them. Part 4 has a massive twist that him was disguised as Bliss's tiny elephant friend for years and years, and I do not understand how. Part 5 pretends like all 4 girls shared this great bond all along, even though they spent a few episodes arguing.
I'll see you guys soon.
We love you! Bye, Bliss!
There's some nice animation flourishes in Part 5, and I enjoyed watching a Powerpuff Girls episode that cares about the action again. But it's not enough to save another mild stretch of the reboot. Perhaps I would have liked it more if I ordered the merch that dropped as soon as the premiere ended, or watched a version with one of the many international stars who dubbed over the character.
You won't let me do anything!
You guys really think I can be a Powerpuff Girl?
Of course, Bliss. You're a sister.
Even though I don't care much for her, I do think it's neat how Bliss becomes a recurring character. She leaves at the end of the 5-parter to become a space cop, and returns in Never Been Blissed to take down an alien at a school dance, bringing her to a new setting to enter a chemistry-free romance with another ally who turns out to be a shape-shifting villain. At least there's some tension this time. I do think Bliss's prom design is an improvement, collecting her hair into a ponytail and giving her boots with leggings. This Back to the Future bit is pretty good too. Having Tom Kenny around to play incidentals really elevates a lot of the gags on this show.
Hey, Chuck, you know that new sound you've been looking for? Well, this ain't it.
After making a brief cameo in Season 3, Bliss's final appearance in Lights Out plays with the idea of her coming from space to gift Townsville with reality warping devices called the Bugly, which look very strange on characters without ears. Or did she?
I took her form to give everyone in Townsville my latest weapon.
This turns out to be Silico's final appearance, closing out his character by having Bubbles reprogram the Buglies to trap Silico in a never-ending dream. You wouldn't realize how screwed up this is because of how childish the dialogue around it sounds.
Bubbles, I mean every word of this, I'm both impressed and terrified.
Thanks, I guess.
Every Silico appearance ended with a cliffhanger that was never directly followed up. In fact, that goes for all cliffhangers in this series. However, a few recurring villains also get a strange amount of closure and lore in Season 3. The chaotic party animal Allegro was once a cosmic bear who lived in the clouds until a thunderstorm split him up into positive and negative beings. Why Allegro turned into a tiny blue bear the first 2 times he was defeated is never explained, but it takes a whole episode of yelling and arguing to put him back together. And yes, he still twerks. Another crazy reveal is delivered in Total Eclipse of the Cart. It's a brisk and gag-heavy, wacky racist spoof, until Jemica, the evil archaeologist girl, gets her hands on an ancient artifact. Apparently, she was secretly an ancient queen from thousands of years ago trapped in a child's body. No clue if this was always the plan. Nevertheless, I'm glad Jemica is finally interesting. The stakes are high, Mojo has to team up with the heroes, Blossom and Buttercup have a Leonardo and Raphael style sibling rivalry, and Donny gets run over and electrocuted. Hooray!
Good thing I brought an umbrella.
Good thing.
Everyone is here, including the Rowdy Rough Boys. Their cameo is so insignificant that I'm already out of footage. What was the point of this? It ain't perfect, but Total Eclipse of the Cart is probably my favorite Reboot episode, as I'm a sucker for ensemble villain team-ups like this and the Christmas one, where the gals fly around the city in search of a gift for their dad. The show could have used more of these. After things started to pick up in season 2, I was hoping the quality would continue to improve. And while this is the best the reboot has been, there's still enough issues and duds in season 3 to keep me from recommending it.
Okay, girls, let's get disgusting.
The Powerpuff's personalities are more subtle, the designs look more consistent, there's no more subpar anthology episodes, that's all I'm going to say about those, and a few very atmospheric or polished animation shots too. Still, you gotta deal with plot devices that aren't fully explained, clashing character designs, and an alright 4-parter that definitely should have been 5 parts. You got episodes devoted to the setup, Blossom, Bubbles, and finally, the ending. This final season is business as usual besides a few standouts, like the only Gangrene Gang episode. Buttercup is swindled in a basketball game during a repetitive, mostly superpower-free 11 minutes where Ace's catchphrase is, "Chop it up!" Big Billy is a featured villain in the intro. Why were these boys done so dirty? Upon reaching the series finale in airing order, Sideline Dad, I was disappointed at how so many of the problems I had were still present 119 segments later. Boring, overprotective father premise, any consistency goes out the window for the comedy, and the last joke is about the professor being too nerdy to know what sports are.
If your kids like soccer, they would love hockey.
Hawkeye?
As I watched through these sluggish 3 seasons, I'd occasionally return to the original series, and began to think that perhaps the reboot was doomed from the start. After all, when Craig McCracken started development on other projects, and handed over showrunning duties to board artist Chris Savino, didn't the Powerpuff Girls already get bad?
Yes, thanks to your foolishness, we will be reduced to nothing, like the amount of respect I get after 6 seasons on this show!
In seasons 5 and 6 of the original Powerpuff Girls, the poppier colors, smoother line art, and more consistent design philosophy remove some of the looseness and grit in the transition from cells to digital ink and paint. Attempts to mimic the quieter and more atmospheric moments of prior seasons result in dull stretches that drag out a joke, half-hour episodes that could have easily been half as long, and bits of pure filler. Why does Nightmare have a 40-second transition with no dialogue and barely any animation? I had to make a sandwich for a joke in a previous video, and this made for the perfect background noise. It seems there was also an attempt to prevent the Monster of the Week formula from growing too stale, and you can tell the crew was running out of steam towards the end.
After 5 seasons and a movie, you're probably just tired and feel okay with just phoning it in, right?
Not to say these all turned out bad, but why did they keep making episodes that sound absolutely terrible on paper? What if Fuzzy Lumpkins had 3 identical children that were really noisy and dirty and made the toilet explode? What if there's a bad guy who can't stop crying and screaming and makes everyone else cry and scream too? What if the girls had huge sunburns and could barely move and nothing happened in the episode besides them yelling in pain until their skin peels and it's super gross? I compare their quality to the Reboot episode where Buttercup gets swole, then has to quickly gain weight to return to normal size. Everybody knows that one.
I'm ready to save my sisters.
We also get Gimmicks Galore, a handheld documentary about the girls, a caveman one, a western one, and a clip show consisting mostly of ridiculous fake clips, which I'll admit crack me up. I love how much it truly hates contrived clip shows.
Powerpuff Girls was drawn before a live studio audience.
As middling as it can be, this run has so many gems, even when it got experimental. There's loving tributes to Jay Ward cartoons, Silent Felix the Cat cartoons, and 70s rock operas. The infamous and banned See Me, Feel Me, Know Me has some rough plotting that I can put aside because I love how wild and ambitious it is. They're busting out the early digital effects, the voice actors are forced to sing and yell at the same time, they're contradicting their own message in the final minutes, the professor gets a banger song while he's beating his meat, and communism is mentioned in the IMDb synopsis. Upon reflection, it's more of a dictatorship, if I'm being honest. I love discussing the political leanings of Powerpuff Girls episodes. I didn't realize until now how much this episode sticks out in a sea of mostly mid, but even there you can find the artists putting their personal stamps on episodes. Samurai Jack artist Andy Soriano did these gnarly black and white fantasy drawings for Substitute Creature. Ren and Stimpy legend Chris Riccardi is all over these designs for the Ratfink-esque Dukes of Doom. Thurop Van Orman's episodes have occasional reminders that he created the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack too.
Is this your baby? That thing don't look nothing like me! Nope!
Even though the Savino run and the reboot are mixed bags, only one of them is still the original Powerpuff Girls. The score still bangs, the voice actors are still pitch perfect, the action is still bombastic, and above all else, the characters are still in character. Besides maybe the mayor. He gets too much screen time and is a little too baby.
I'd love to help you, but I already have a baby to take care of.
Why can't we name Main Street after me?
Even when the fighting is minimal and too much time is spent lying around the house, like in Lying Around the House, the bond between the professor and his daughters is always so sweet and genuine. They love each other so much that he can't imagine them being any different, and they can't imagine him throwing them out.
He wants to throw us away. What's he need 2 garbage cans for? We can all fit in one.
Even when there is no day to save, the episodes are still worth watching when they feel super specific to these characters, such as Mojo altering Townsville's dialect by teaching an English course, or becoming one of 2 dads to the Rowdy Rough Boys with him.
I'm so proud of them!
All of the callbacks feel driven by a fresh concept instead of nostalgia. They poke fun at how outlandish the superpowers have gotten by revealing that Buttercup's special ability is curling her tongue. Seducer returns so that the Gangrene Gang can be down bad for her. You could animate either of these on cells and they'd fit right into the early seasons. This is the gang's last appearance too. Why did they get a semi-redemption?
Blossom? Bring her down for us!
If this experience taught me anything, it's that seasons 5 and 6 are worth revisiting. This is fitting since both the 1998 and 2016 iterations are treated like one brand now. So much new merchandise you can buy in stores will use the new designs with the old logo. I assume this is happening because multiple style guides were sent out to licensees with no restrictions separating the 2 versions from each other. At least it's better than the Chinese figures from Top Toy that whitewash Bliss. There's at least 3 white Blisses, but only 1 official Octi plush. I hate that so much. Fittingly, this reboot doesn't have much of a legacy beyond merch. A few storyboard artists went on to create their own series, but neither share much DNA compared to other projects that came out of Cartoon Network. Between anniversary celebrations and video game crossovers, the classic looks have become the default versions of the characters.
Yo conozco las chicas superpoderosas.
Sí, pero esas son las nuevas. Lo original siempre es mejor.
Outside of a few advertisements, the last time the Reboot girls were animated was in the Jellystone crossover, where Bubbles was beaten up by her counterpart in the background as an Easter egg. To be fair, this version won't truly be dead until every millennial that still has an icon from the official Powerpuff Yourself character creator has perished. Plus, I can still order its aura off DoorDash. This thing went out with a whimper, following 2 years of the reboot premiering on Sunday afternoons with little advertising.
Pretty anticlimactic if you ask me.
I can't say it was a failure. It got tons of press, brought the franchise back to store shelves, and in terms of episode count, it lasted about as long as Clarence or OKKO. It's not like the show was so terrible the crew never worked in this town again. Bob Boyle was recently an EP on Rock Paper Scissors at Nickelodeon, while Nick Jennings produced the Cartoon Shorts program. Haley Mancini spoke about being harassed online for her involvement in the series.
That show was my first staff job, so it was a dream come true. No more side jobs, no more sharing a bedroom with a Craigslist roommate. Just keep remembering that most folks are people doing their best. That's all I ask.
I don't like the Powerpuff Girls 2016. Misguided characterization, derivative stories, inconsistent visuals, surface level references, and overall bland presentation. I was going to compare its de-emphasis on superheroics to the classic episode where the professor imagines his daughters as regular, run-of-the-mill girls, and call this version a parody of itself. But I already made the same kind of comparison to bookend my Fairly OddParents retrospectives, so I'm afraid I'll have to come up with something original. Now I know how the creators of this reboot felt. It's harder than it looks.
That definitely wasn't worth it.
Compared to its contemporaries, Teen Titans Go, Ben 10 2017, and Thundercats Roar, it's far and away the worst of the bunch, improving, but never truly finding its own identity. Compared to the competition, I'd say its stagnation makes it a clear contender for the worst animated reboot of the 2010s.
Excuse me. It'll help here.
Maybe it would have been better off if Mojo Jojo dabbed more. It's so clear how many calls were made by executives over the creatives that unfortunately received most of the hate.
Ooh, this one talks.
Mojo is an ugly green doofus.
She does say that often.
Unfortunately, today we've learned there's media even old NICKtendo can't call an underrated classic. I'm sorry, woman. You deserve better cartoons. Now, if you grew up on this or have a personal fondness for it, I'd love to hear your perspective down in the comments. My buddy Shadow Street reviewed every episode as they dropped, so it was satisfying to return to those old videos and finally understand what he was complaining about.
I realize now that it's not about what makes the girls tick. It's about the fact that once again, the day is saved thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. Woo!
Well, girls, looks like there's one more lesson here.
Yeah! If you start something, you gotta finish it.
Right.
If anything, this reboot is a testament to how crucial Craig McCracken and the crew he chose to continue the Powerpuff Girls were to making the series what it was. I wonder, what kept him busy back in the 2010s anyway?